Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Eat Fresh Veggies podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening today and joining in the conversation. This is episode 6. It's going to be a very interesting episode. But before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that episode 5 is not on my YouTube page because I couldn't figure out how to get it from Instagram to YouTube. So go to my Instagram page at Eat Fresh Veggies, and I also believe it's on my Facebook page at Eat Fresh Veggies to listen to episode 5 on why Black farmers matter with special guest Black to Earth. And definitely follow Black to Earth. I'm actually going to have her Instagram page put in this video so that you all can follow her and check her out and support her mission. So today, on the Eat Fresh Veggies podcast, episode 6, we are going to be talking about the connection of global pandemics and our consumption of eating animals. And it comes at us in an interesting time because the COVID-19 global pandemic is going crazy, especially here in America. Yeah, it's a thing. And I know everyone's got an opinion about the COVID-19, the trajectory that it's going in, and the vaccine that's supposed to be coming out, which is a whole other topic. But today we're going to be talking about the connection of COVID-19 as well as other global pandemics, the connection to eating animals, and how COVID-19 is going to be far from the last global pandemic if we do not reevaluate our consumption of animals and the animals that we do consume, keeping them in disgusting conditions that are basically like hotbeds for all kind of diseases and outbreaks. So first, let's take a look at the past and how we can take a look at previous outbreaks that have happened on a national and an international scale and how they have been connected to our consumption of eating animals. So let's start with, even some diseases that were happening before I was even alive. Mad cow disease obviously came from eating cows. It actually came from sick cows being anyway, I'm not going to get into the science, but it came from cows. It came from the consumption. It came from cows eating other sick cows, and then people going forward and eating those sick cows. But yes, the consumption of course, eating bovine is has greatly contributed to the mad cow disease. Swine flu, as we all know, I think it was called H1N1 that came out a few years ago, or a number of years ago, came from eating pigs. The avian flu, various types of avian flus have came from eating birds, obviously. And of course, the COVID-19 outbreak that has been caused by eating bats. Even that is up for discussion on what animal was eaten that caused the COVID-19, but we're going to roll with what has kind of been circulated and widely accepted, which was the consumption of eating bats. But again, animals consumed at every stage of this has contributed to the persistency of these diseases being perpetuated all throughout our local communities, national and international communities. And we can even take it to smaller outbreaks like listeria outbreaks, salmonella outbreaks, and E. coli outbreaks that have happened on a smaller scale throughout the years has been caused by directly eating contaminated animals or directly eating, sickened animals, or those sickened animals contaminating plant-based foods. Because I know many of you all are about to straight up come for me and be like, oh, well, listeria was caused by eating lettuce, or E. coli was caused by eating leafy greens. Come to find out that the link is these plants were being watered with contaminated water that is often downstream from factory farms. So basically, to kind of nip that in the bud, we have factory farms with sickened animals that were sickened with salmonella, listeria, and E. coli, and their contamination got into the water, and then the water was used to water these plants. So again, it's bringing it back to not only the farming of animals, but the consumption of sickened animals and animals, period, if you ask me, that has been linked to a lot of outbreaks and, pandemics that has wreaked havoc on our local and international communities. So, anything that the year of COVID-19 has taught us is that we need to be reevaluating our connection between the animals that we eat, the way we are raising these animals, and that the world may be actually going in the direction of a more plant-based diet in order to prevent and therefore control the spread of not only diseases like COVID-19, but a future of other global pandemics. Because if we do not start asking ourselves these questions on in pondering the connection between the consumption of animals, keeping or consuming animals that are kept in very inhumane and disgusting conditions, and the connection between eating these animals and local, national, and international pandemics and outbreaks, we are looking forward to a future of plenty more pandemics if we do not start asking ourselves these very important questions on our eating habits. So let's get started in how animals are raised in this country, and how animals are being birthed, grown, and killed for food, and how these conditions are basically hotbeds for all kind of outbreaks, and basically a hotbed for the next global outbreak. So in America, and I'm just going to speak on America. We can talk about a lot of other places, but we're going to speak on America. Animals are raised in very inhumane and disgusting conditions, not only morally disgusting conditions, but physically disgusting conditions that are basically a breeding ground for all types of diseases and other little things that can, not only kill us as individuals, like salmonella, E. coli outbreaks, and listeria, but can, definitely lead to, another COVID-19. So the way that animals are raised in this country, they're often raised in very cramped conditions. They're raised in very inhumane conditions and are often being raised in their own feces, being grown next to, other dead animals that may have died of diseases that can actually infect us as well. So we have living animals living in the same conditions as animals that have died. And because we are mass manufacturing these animals, I mean, we're talking billions of, and we're just going to keep it land animals. We're not going to even talk about fish. We're just going to say land animals, chickens, pigs, and cows. Billions of land animals are killed for food every single year, and very seldomly are, we're not talking about these organic farms where, the white picket fence and the animals is friends with the owner. No, we're talking about the standard of how, billions of animals are being, well, obviously they're being forcibly impregnated, and then they are being born to basically be grown and killed for food. So I'm going to concentrate on concentrated animal feeding operations, also known as CAFOs. Definitely check it out. It's just CAFO for short, but it gives you a better idea in how these animals are being raised and in the conditions that they are being raised in, and how you can make the connection between an animal being raised in its own feces next to other dead animals can make you sick. It just, it's a brain teaser. But we have had a very disgusting connection with animals and basically treating them like machines. So, of course, we have already been seeing outbreaks caused by the consumption of animals for years. COVID-19 is just big enough for us to take a better look at it and really start to draw that connection of not only eating animals, but eating animals raised in disgusting conditions, and how we are basically asking for another pandemic if we don't, start to just start having this discussion. So concentrated animal feeding operations, and then of course how the animal is being killed. So we all have heard of slaughterhouses, obviously, and I think that we have a fantasy, or let me better say a disconnect on what we think a slaughterhouse looks like, because a lot of people who eat meat just don't want to think about it. They don't want to think that, this animal was killed, you know what I mean, to become my lunch or my dinner. But if we don't start having that conversation, how are we going to start grabbing hold or gaining a better understanding of the connections between, what is causing pandemics and how we can prevent them from happening? So when an animal is slaughtered, the animal is slaughtered in very disgusting conditions. Like it's a whole vibe on how slaughterhouses have cooperated and also gotten around the government and red tape to be able to kill as many animals as possible in a given amount of time without extremely strict regulations. So we have, I mean, some of these companies are, required to kill like 60 animals like in an hour. Like, I would even argue that it's like up to 100 animals an hour. So that means that animals are being killed and, obviously, or for the most part, they're being killed by just having their throat slit. They're killed, and then the next animal. They're killed, then the next animal. So it's just this assembly line of animals, their viscera. I'm just gonna say it, their viscera, and then the next animal just comes in. So definitely painting a rated R image, but this is where your food comes from. And where your food comes from is rated R. If you eat meat, it just is what it is. But so not only the way these animals are being raised in concentrated feeding operations are very heinous and disgusting conditions, but then this animal that was raised in its own feces and was raised in extremely cramped conditions, which is a hotbed for disease, then gets moved to the slaughterhouse and is put on an assembly line of just being killed one after another. So, and all that adds up to over 1 billion animals a year being killed for food. So as you can see, this very destructive pattern of how animals are being raised for food and how they're being killed for food is, really a fast track to not just COVID-19 or not just diseases like COVID-19 that, have really just kind of taken over 2020, but how we're going to be looking forward to a long future of diseases like this. So I want to draw it back because the cause of COVID-19, everyone's got an opinion, but I'm just going to keep it cool, of, that COVID-19 was caused by eating bats in a market. And I don't know if anyone really kind of read into it. Definitely comment below on what you think. Definitely send in some links. But in my understanding, it was caused by and it wasn't caused by this grandiose way that Americans eating animals. However, it was caused by a bat being killed in a very dirty area in which the disease was able to jump from the bat to the human. And of course, it's a very I forgot the word, but it's easy to catch, and thus we have, over 300,000 deaths in America. So the reason why I think that COVID-19 is almost forcing us to question our eating habits and to really question, like, if we live, now I know not everybody can just be vegan. I'm not ignorant, but if we have the option to eat a mostly plant-based diet, why are we? And why are we putting our health at risk every time we eat an animal? The way that, the COVID-19 was caused by a bat was not in some giant concentrated animal feeding operation. It was caused by someone just, killing the animal right there on the spot, giving the animal to the person, and it has just spiraled, obviously, into this global pandemic. So I wonder, is COVID-19 the start of a discussion towards a more plant-based diet? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, because it is causing us to make the connection finally that eating animals is a risk. Eating animals is a risk to not only our individual health, of like, you never really know if that chicken that you're eating may be contaminated with salmonella or listeria or E. coli. But it's really kind of starting to bring about the question that there is a direct correlation between our consumption of animals and various types of local, national, and international outbreaks like COVID-19. So I was watching something on how some communities are starting to eat a more plant-based diet for finance reasons, because eating animals is expensive. You have to kill the animal, refrigerate the animal. It's just a whole process. But they've been drifting towards a more plant-based diet because of the cost restrictions that have been brought, the economic result of, a shutdown and as a result of COVID-19. But I wonder if we would even entertain the thought of shifting towards a more plant-based diet as a way to prevent future COVID-19 or future global pandemics like COVID-19. I know it's a interesting thought that many of us probably never thought of, but um, I don't know. That's just the way I see it. That I don't know. We just keep seeing this pattern between swine flu, avian flu, mad cow disease, and of course the contamination of our plant-based foods from animal agriculture factories. That we keep seeing this pattern of these global pandemics that keep happening as a result of manufacturing animals. And I just think that it is bringing about this conversation on reevaluating not only how we are processing these animals and keeping them in very disgusting and inhumane conditions, but our consumption of animals, period. And COVID-19 is a really good look at that because, between, swine flu, mad cow disease, avian flu, which was caused by chickens, was actually caused, from a concentrated animal feeding operation where hundreds of thousands of animals or thousands of animals are cramped in these conditions. And once one gets sick with something, it basically spreads like wildfire. But COVID-19 was caused by, just killing one animal, and just giving it directly to the person. And it wasn't killed in this, like, magnificent way of this whole feeding operation. It was killed by just killing an animal one time, in one situation, and just giving that animal to the consumer. And we saw how that spiraled out of control. So, interesting conversation. I would love to know what you guys think about it. And I would really love you guys to really question yourself on, if not COVID-19, what is the pandemic that is going to cause us to start drifting towards a more plant-based diet? Just saying. So, thank you all so much for listening in today. I appreciate everyone for their support and their love. Like I said, my goal is to come out with a new episode Monday, 6 o'clock, every Monday, every 6 o'clock. Hold me to it. And I would like to know what you guys think, not only about this topic, but what are some future topics that you all would like to hear about as far as plant-based eating, Black sustainability, and empowerment, in our communities. So, yeah, let me know what you think, and definitely check out my description below on how you can support the podcast and support me as an activist and some future projects that I'm working on. So, thank you all so much for listening in today. Of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can listen to this episode and future episodes. And I will see you all next week. Peace.